Where do you live, kid?
Like I'm telling you.
Nowhere, huh?
Sure, I have a place. I just don't feel like going there now.
Well, you can't stay here tonight. The temperature will drop below freezing. If you know somewhere you can stay, I'll take you there. Or you can stay at my place tonight if you'd like. You can take a hot shower and sleep in a warm bed.
And I don't owe you anything?
Nothing.
You won't bite me?
No, I don't bite kids. Just keep what I am a secret, okay? My name's Mark Delaware.
Delaware? Like the state? Okay. I'm Johnny.
How old are you?
13. What about you?
A little older than 30.
It's a deal. I'll go with you. You're right. I have nowhere else. And you did make a promise. What? This is our ride? It's so old. I thought vampires had money and stuff. Aren't you all supposed to be rich?
Are you coming or not?
At least this place isn't half bad that I thought it'd be. Hurry up, it's freezing!
The shower's upstairs. The guest room is next to that. Just put your clothes outside the door and I'll wash them for you. I'll bring you something to change in and some extra towels.
That's great. Can I have something to eat too? Wait, do you even have food in this place?
I'll order some pizza. Please stay in the house.
What? The Fed dropped interest rates again? What are they thinking?
I hope you like pepperoni. Wait, we have a few rules in this house. 1 is to always clean after yourself. 2 is... we don't steal. You don't steal. Not from me or anyone else. Are we clear? Take what's out of your pockets. You're pretty brave to do that stunt, kid. We really have to learn to trust each other. So let's start with today.
I won't do that again. But can you blame me? You're still the vampire who bit that woman.
Good. Remember it. But I promise you, I'll never bite you. So, what were you watching?
Some business report. It has a bunch of old people talking, mostly.
You follow that stuff?
Sure. I want to be a rich stockbroker someday. Or maybe an economist. Trading seems easy, but it's the rest that's hard.
Where did you learn about stocks?
I panhandled by a pawn shop. They always kept their TV to this station. Now I can't turn on the TV without looking at it once. It feels weird if I don't.
Don't you watch shows that are normal for a teenager?
I watch cartoons. Sometimes I watch anime.
So where do you go to school?
School? I don't go to school. I left home and no school will take someone without an address, or a parent to register them. Too many questions.
Why'd you run away from home?
I don't want to talk about it. I have a good reason not to go back. Mom's in jail. Dad left long ago. And they wanted me to go live with a friend of theirs. But he drinks all the time. It sucks over there. Mark, thanks for letting me stay here.
We need to get you back in school. You seem bright. Hate that to be wasted. If you need an address, you can use mine. If you'd like, you may stay here. Promise not to tell anyone I'm a vampire. Deal?
It's a deal. I wasn't sure about you at first, but it's warm here and you seem normal. I mean, for a vampire, I guess. I'll stay, and I'll keep your secret. I mean, I wouldn't want to get bit or whatever you do to those you don't like.
And I'll promise too. No biting, no changing, no asking for blood.
A vampire shouldn't be raising a human child! I'm completely against this!
I'm 33 now. I'm my own adult, and if this kid needs help, I'll give it to him.
So now that you've matured this much, you're starting to have regrets about not having a family. This isn't the way to have one, Tyro. What on earth were you thinking? What if this child thinks that being a vampire is normal? You'll end up brainwashing him to believe that he should be one. Is that what you want? Is that your plan? To raise your own apprentice? You have a big head if you think you're ready for an apprentice, Tyro. You're supposed to wait until after your 100th year before taking someone under your wing. Only in rare and dire circumstances do vampires break this tradition. But raising a child along vampires, this is unacceptable. Please tell me you thought this through.
You're misunderstanding everything. I'm going to raise him as a normal kid. He'll live and die with a normal life.
Hey! I'm standing right here! Don't worry about it. I'm tough. Don't worry about me wanting to be a vampire, mister. Mark promised me that he'd never bite me, and he'd never turn me.
Is that true?
It is. Give me some credit, Mikkelson. It's not like I wanted to start training my own Tyro so soon after you changed me. Johnny just needs a place to stay, and in exchange, he'll keep our secret.
I'm not stupid. Hell yes, I'll keep your secret.
Language, please.
Johnny, was it? If you ever decide to tell our secret, or decide to start hunting us, you won't see another sunrise.
What are you saying? He'd never...
Silence! You're blinded by his age. However, I've lived long enough to know human nature never changes. Will he keep your confidence? Will it slip someday to a future lover or to a friend over a few drinks? This is how we make our enemies. It always starts with a whisper, a rumor. You've already made your mistake. You went over my head.
I welcomed you into the society, but remember, the society of the arts is still mine. These are my friends, and I'll do anything to protect them. I know Mikkelsen feels the same way. It's nothing personal, child. It's just that I've had the experience of being hunted in my lifetime, and I'd rather not repeat it.
Got it. I won't tell a soul, I promise.
I'll keep you to your word. Mikkelsen, you may be my friend, but your tyro has done something to jeopardize the entire society. Mark, I want to know what your real plans are for him.
Real plans? I want him to grow up to be a normal teenager. Well, as normal as it can be, having a vampire as a guardian. I really don't think he wants to be one of us. You should have seen his face when he asked me not to make him a vampire.
So he fears us. We can use this to our advantage.
What if this child eventually does want to be one of us? He might become confused to what's normal. He might start thinking it is his right after he's lived with us so long.
Then I won't change him, Professor. But if he does someday ask, it'd be the society's decision. He'd be part of our family then, although I'd rather have him as a human than a vampire.
Your recklessness has gone to epic proportions today, Tyro. I'm both impressed and disappointed. I've always admired your ability to think impulsively, but this goes beyond the pale. Fine, keep him, raise him, but the consequences are yours. I have only one demand. When it is time for the society to hibernate, you shall join us, without argument.
Are there any more vampire groups besides the Society of the Arts?
Yes, there are others. I just stopped by one yesterday while you were at school. As you know, Mikkelsen's training me to be the enforcer, so sometimes we check on vampires who are slipping, not really following the code as best as they should. I don't think it's good for you to know more about my line of work.
They said you're the enforcer's apprentice. What's it like? Have you killed other vampires? Okay, don't talk about it. What about other vampire groups? How many vampires are there?
too many.
1 in 20?
More like one vampire exists per 50,000 people in the United States. I don't know about other places. And not every vampire is friendly. Some think humans are only food. Some hate humans and others are hermits. If any vampire besides the society approaches you, you come straight to me. I can't stand it. Why are you so quiet? What are you thinking about? You wouldn't shut up earlier.
I was remembering my Gramps.
Do you want to live with your grandfather? Is he still alive? Do you want to contact him? Maybe you could stay with him. It'd be a normal and safer life.
Are you trying to get rid of me? He's gone now. Died when I was still young. He was a nice grandpa. Someday, I want to be a grandpa like him.
I think you're getting too far ahead of yourself, kid. You're too young to worry about stuff like families.
But your story is kind of sad, isn't it? Here I'm talking about school life and my future. And then I remember that you'll never have the same kind of life as me. That was taken from you. You'll never grow old, or have grandkids.
Is that what you're worried about? Talk as much as you want. I'll listen. I decided to become a vampire on my own. That choice was a long time ago.
The boy needs to see something besides the basketball games you drag him to.
My mom promised to take me to a musical one day, but I never had the chance to go.
Are you sure you don't want to wear anything else?
Nope, a bow tie's fine. No one will notice what I wear anyways.
See there? That's the violin chair I was telling you about. That woman has talent.
This brings back memories. I remember when you saw the picture of Dorian Gray, and I had asked if vampires were real or just a myth. It's ironic how things in life come full circle. You'll see a lot of that in this new life.
It's true. Days seem to fly when you have centuries of memories. However, No matter what happens, human nature never changes. People will always desire power, youth, and fame.
I know that he's your ward and that it is none of my business. But shouldn't the boy be wearing something a little nicer? He's sitting next to us, Noel. I'm afraid that he will stick out like a sore thumb.
You're right. I tried to warn him.
As long as he is aware that his choices reflect on us.
I saw them when we came in. It's a public event. They can have their date here just like anyone else. Don't draw their attention further.
You can have all of your desires in exchange for your little soul.
Can't help it. Gotta go pee. Don't worry, I know the way back.
They're doing a wonderful job, aren't they?
I'll add that it's so good to see Johnny interested in the arts.
The kid knows what's good music.
He surprises me all the time, but his biggest love is business. He always thinks about the stock market and makes different strategies for it. He writes down how he would like to invest and compares the numbers a week later. He's gotten pretty good at comparing numbers.
He is a fine boy. I must admit I was concerned when you first brought home that orphan. But he is nice and usually polite. Now, if only he can learn to dress sharper.
He has been gone for a while, hasn't he?
If Mark doesn't drink from you now, he'll drink from you later. I bet that he wants you to be his tyro. Why else would a vamp go out of his way to be so nice to a teenager? Remember, brat, if Mark doesn't change you, I will. That is the price for not paying with your blood. And when I change you, it will be the worst thing you've ever felt. And I'll enjoy it.
Careful, Mark. This boy should hear what Damien has to say. He's too young to bring him into our world. You should have told him the truth. He told us you weren't planning on making him a donor or a vampire. We both know the code. I don't believe the enforcer's pet would break rules like we do.
Get out of my way! What did you do to Johnny?
Nothing. I was just talking to him. Remember what I said, Squirt.
You bastard! If you ever come near him again, I'll kill you!
We did nothing to get so angry over. I just told him the truth.
Damn, this is not how I wanted my evening to go, love. We missed the second half of the show. Happy you've got your answer?
Very. Don't worry. I'll make it up to you later.
You, above everyone else, have no reason to be afraid of me. I'll never break my promise. You're okay now, shh. You're all right. Damien can't hurt you anymore.
Those vampires have no chill. I peed myself and now I'm crying. I'm so weak.
Cry all you want. It's normal after something like that. What did that jerk say to you back there?
I just bought a Coke when I saw them. They called me over and asked if I was a friend of yours. I said yes, and then they asked if I was your donor. What are donors?
It's what we call people we regularly drink from.
I thought so. You bite away from home. I always hoped that you were not hurting anybody, and were just picking up girls like you did the night we met.
If the Society's donors are out of town, yes. That's what I always do for blood. I don't go around hunting humans. That bastard. Shit! I can't believe he'd suggest I'd make you my tyro. What was he thinking?
Is it true?
I won't change you. We made a promise, didn't we? I'll always keep it.
You never talk about how you became a vampire. What about what that creep said earlier? Does it hurt?
It hurts to get bitten, but that's physical pain. Normally, people enjoy it when we drink them and don't even notice. Afterwards, our bites quickly heal. Think it's something in the saliva. However, changing is different. It's very hard. When I first drank vampire blood, I felt the worst despair. Then I was very nauseous for a long while. I thought I was dying.
That doesn't sound nice.
Believe me, it's not. Are you really okay? I don't care if he's a vampire or from the House of Skulls. If anyone tries anything like that again, I'll rip their teeth out.
I think I'm going to take a shower and go to sleep. It's been a long night.
That's an understatement.
And next time we see a show, let's pick somewhere where the skulls don't creep around.
You got it, kid.
I can't believe that. Why would he say something like that to the boy?
Nobody knows what that guy is thinking. He's not exactly on the sane side.
You picked the worst guy to fight with, Mark. He's vengeful.
I know, Professor. I know.
Now, Tyro, I'm going to speak to you as the enforcer. According to the code, if a vampire harms another and it's not in self-defense or in defense of a human, then blood must be repaid with blood. I'm sorry, but you're obligated to go to the House of Skulls and ask their forgiveness.
He was scaring the piss out of the kid. What was I supposed to do?
It's a legal gray area, and I do not want it to be said that I ignore the wrongdoings of my apprentice. You'll go and meet with them and make peace. That is an order.
I understand, sir.
He's waiting for you. Mikkelson called to let us know you'd be stopping by.
All this talk of making peace from the enforcer. Fine, I'll give him what he wants. You're a scapegoat after all. Now we're even. As if I would play by the enforcer's rules. Who does he think he is anyways? I'm glad you finally decided to visit us. Felt like you've been snubbing my family.
I can't believe you closed your eyes. You didn't think that he'd beat you up, did you?
The thought crossed my mind.
Nah, I'm not as cruel as my creator. I know that you're pretty pissed off. But you should trust me more. So, what's up with the boy? I thought vampires couldn't make kids. Or did you find a way to do it?
Johnny's not my kid, but in a way, I've adopted him.
Johnny's his name, huh? Is it charity for blood? You never told me you found a young donor. I bet his blood is the best. You should invite us over sometime to share.
He's not my donor. I'm not going to hand him over to any vampire to taste, sip, or bite. He's not a meal.
What about Kyle or Nate? Don't you want their blood? I bet you're thirsty.
No, I'll pass.
That boy also said he's not your donor. Why isn't he? Is he too young? It's hard finding willing donors. Unless you're us, of course. Being quasi in the light helps hide us. When we act to our instincts, people don't mind it as much.
Oh, I get it. You're taking him in because you can't have a son. Training him to be your Tyro when he's still young. That's brilliant. Why haven't I thought of that? He hasn't lived long enough as a human to know differently.
It's weird for a vampire to be so close to a human day after day and not bite him. I can't believe that. It's unnatural.
No, we're the ones who are unnatural. You guys all have the wrong idea. First, you don't think raising a teenager to be a vampire is a bad idea. I mean, I didn't know what to do with my life when I was 13. How can anyone ask someone that young to be a vampire? Secondly, Johnny will never be my Tyro. Ever. If I could become a human again, I would. I wouldn't ask him to share this life.
What did you just say? Are you actually serious?
About what?
About wanting to be human. About wanting to die.
I don't want to die. I just want to live the rest of my life as a normal man.
If you're human, you'll die. There are few of us as it is. You've been given a gift. A gift! We live long. We're like immortals. We're demigods. We're not losers.
I don't think so. We're no better than humans. Vampires can still die. Yes, it's hard to die, but accidents happen. What's the point of living a longer life if you don't even know if you risk your soul?
That's the reason you want to become human. Souls? And here I'd hoped you fell in love with some hot woman or something. Of course, if you did, you could just change her like I did Chenshu.
We had to do some convincing that we'd be okay as vampires. We learned as we went.
Look, Mark, why don't you spend some time with us and get away from the kid and the professor? Getting attached to humans only gets you hurt when they croak. Hang out with us, and remember what it means to be a vampire. It's normal to bite the human next to you. Hell, we can even go on an old-fashioned hunt if that's what you need to feel alive. You really feel power when you chase them down and they beg. Just drop the idea of wanting to be human again.
And what about us? Would you feel hurt if we croaked?
Yes, Bloodbag. I might just miss you guys. Just come visit. We'll be here. We always are.
I'm sorry that Damien scared the kid, but he's right. Our world is different.
Your world or us vampires' world? Because where I'm sitting, you'll never be more than food to those two.
You're wrong.
No, brother. I'm starting to think he's right. But Mark, you're not a member of the House of Skulls. We are, even if we're only donors. And I agree with Damien. I don't like how little you think of the gift you've been given. At least you have immortality. Be thankful and stop acting like an ass. If you really want that teenager to be a vampire, you shouldn't wait around. Don't let him end up like us.
Damien mentioned something about hibernation. Is it true that the society goes to sleep for a few decades?
Yeah, 40 years actually. I do it too, but President Belmonte refuses to hibernate with the others. Last time he woke up, the internet was invented. He thinks things are moving too quickly in the modern world. If he stays awake, so do I. He gets too broody by himself. He needs someone to keep him on his toes.
More like make him worry. You're always out to some new event around town.
And don't you know it? We're forever to have fun. So why not use that time to enjoy life?
You'll still have many lifetimes to do whatever you want, Mark. Well, gentlemen, I will miss having a newspaper with pages you can turn in ink, you can smell. By the time we wake up from hibernation, this will be gone, and probably our news will come through some handheld device.
It already does, Professor.
Yes, but there might be a time when people also stop printing books. The world is always changing. Just think, Tyro. You'll be there to witness it all. I need you to experience hibernation. It is an important skill we need. It saved my progenitor's life once.
You never speak about him. Will you finally tell me how you met?
I think I also want to hear you tell the story.
You already know how we met.
I know. I want to hear it again. It's been a long time since you last spoke of it. Your Tyro deserves to know his heritage. Why don't you start from the beginning?
You're right. But what's there to say? It's not a happy history when I'm the only one left in my bloodline. Well, now there are two alive. I was born in Massachusetts in 1842.
Is Steve Mickelson your real name?
Actually, my real name is Stefan. I've always gone by variations of my real name like Stevie or Steve, like I use now. I was born in a Massachusetts merchant family in 1842. In 1859, my father sent me to study at Oxford in England. Unfortunately, during my college years, the United States fell into civil war. Being in England, I'd missed the draft. While other Union sons served the country with honor, my father, not wanting me to return home, decided to serve instead. He died during the last year of the war. I've always regretted that. In Oxford, I'd met other American students. What I didn't know was that the Southern gentry had a strong tradition of sending their sons overseas to be educated. At first, we didn't get along. The war was in everyone's mind, but eventually, my classmates and I made peace. My Dixie classmates believed that the Southern states had the constitutional right to separate from the Union. Even though we disagreed, eventually we became the best of friends. Those boys and I had some good times. I studied archaeology and languages. Ancient Greece was always my favorite topic, like it's today. I suppose my father always knew that I was cut out more to be an academic than a merchant, or after I'd gotten my doctorate, I was a rising star in the department. After many publications, I managed to secure a grant from a museum to join an archaeology team in northern Greece. The trip was a success, and my team brought back many artifacts. I returned via train, and one of our stops was Paris. My team and I had decided to disembark on the train and enjoy the town for a few days before leaving for England. On our second day in France, I sat at an outdoor cafe enjoying a fine coffee, and I recognized a man passing by. He was a former classmate of mine, a native of the area, named Vildu. He told me that he was starting a new archaeological dig outside an old small village. When he said that he was short-handed, I quickly offered to help. He accepted, and the next day I said goodbye to my former team and left for the village. I planned to only spend that summer. Vildu and I spent a few weeks excavating the remains of a village. Its residents had mysteriously disappeared during the Dark Ages. I was curious to see what he would find, but we found a few walls and pots, but nothing impressive. I was ready to give up when I accidentally tripped over a wall which we'd overlooked. It belonged to what appeared to be the largest house in the site. Based on the evidence, we knew that the house had once belonged to a minor nobility, a knight. Vildu and I were convinced that we'd be able to find something valuable. We dug out the house, and what we found shocked us. The outer doors of the house had been sealed with large stones, and beneath it the house was boarded and mortared up with crosses embedded in the walls. Vildu and I assumed behind those stones were the bodies of people who died from the plague. That was a logical reason why we would have seen a place enclosed during those days. Thinking as we did, we should have never been so curious. We should have left the dead to lay in peace. It was against my judgment as we pulled away the stone. Finally, enough space for us to comfortably duck into the dark house. We brought our oil lamps and began to look inside the dark space. I still remember how thin and stale the air was. There was a corpse in the house. It was about a 40-year-old man, completely preserved and wearing fine clothing for his day. I was distracted by an intersecting hall while Vildu dusted the corpse off. We didn't know what he found. The corpse became alive. He bit into Vildu's neck and tore my friend's main artery. He killed him. I didn't even know my friend was dead. I was so absorbed in walking the halls of the old house that I didn't sense the danger around me. I was grabbed from behind. That was my first time seeing a vampire in bloodlust. It was horrible. He bit deep into my shoulder. As he drank from me, I was so filled with terror I couldn't feel any joy or hope, only fear. I was weak back then, and I couldn't shake him off as he dragged me back to the room where Vildu lay. I cried when I saw my friend dead and realized it was equally hopeless for me as well. It was then, when my tears hit his face, that he snapped out of his hysteria. He leaped away from me and began to apologize to me in Old French. When he saw my colleague, he began to pace between us. I was too frightened and weak to move. I pressed my hand against my body to stop the bleeding. I didn't need to. Vampire bites naturally close, but I didn't know that. I was confused. This monster drank from me and I had lost too much blood. I made no guess that I'd been attacked by a vampire at the time. The only thing I was thinking was that I wished to live. I collapsed in that dusty tomb. That's what it was, Mark, a tomb. The villagers had discovered their local aristocracy. A knight was a vampire. They buried him alive in his own house. They kept him locked up by placing crucifixes completely around the building. Vildu and I were fools to poke around a vampire's grave. The knight's name was Sir Andre Garnier. Stuck in that desolate place, Sir Garnier hibernated there, waiting for God knows when someone would find him. He eventually lost hope and fell into the deepest slumber. That's how he survived. Vampires, I later learned, were not meant to sleep for centuries at a time. A few decades, yes, but hibernating is what kept him alive. We were the first visitors he'd had after centuries. He didn't want to kill his rescuers. When Sir Garnier realized that he had killed my friend, he was determined to save me. Before I knew it, Sir Garnier forced me to drink his blood. I still remember its disgusting taste. Ever since that moment, I became his tyro, his apprentice. In his mind, that is repentance for taking my friend's life. But in his day, progenitors owned their tyros. We had a more master and apprentice relationship. He taught me to kill other vampires. He taught me the code. He taught me how to hunt and to hide. He taught me how to fight. The kind of life of fighting that my poor father never wanted for me. But I became good at it. When he awoke, he had a hard time in the modern world. His language was obsolete. He didn't understand that his noble title had no worth after the French Revolution. He couldn't comprehend how steam engines worked. He called them witchcraft. And forget about that, there were continents and a land called the New World. He was a man completely out of touch with the current times. Eventually, he came with me to America. It was in New York that we met Belmonte.
In the United States, we were surprised to meet such an old vampire. Although we can live an exceptionally long time, so many of us die by accidents or some other fate. He introduced himself as an enforcer of the code. Sure, the oldest among us have heard of enforcers, myself included, but they are rare. Most die before they can pass along the position to another. It was clear that as his tyro, Steve would succeed him. After a few messages, the leaders of the vampire communities accepted him into that role for Colorado and all the Middle States. It only made sense. Our region of the United States didn't have an active enforcer. No one wants to be the one saddled without a vampire community, having to travel alone and enact a strict code of justice. That role reminds too many of us of our mortality. You'd have never have guessed that Steve was the tyro of such a quiet vampire. The old vampire had no life to him. His eyes were dead. I suppose that would happen to anyone after spending hundreds of years in isolation. Anyone would go insane. Luckily, I spoke a version of his dialect that was a few centuries later. He cried when I first spoke his provincial French. Besides Steve, no one knew how to speak with him. How could we? His dialect was from the 9th century. Charlie knew a few words here and there, but his French wasn't old enough. Sir Garnier never did open up to any of us.
It was only 10 years later that Sir Garnier asked me to make the hardest decision I'd have to make in my life. He asked me to drink from him. The idea was that when I did, some part of him, like a memory, would remain. It is a practice the older vampires used to do. Sir Garnier was determined to become human again. I couldn't disobey him. I'd no say. Being his tyro was like being his page. He never quite treated me as an equal. I did as I was told.
Sir Garnier left us soon after Mikkelsen drank his blood. He'd found a way to become human, but he returned an old man. He said he'd saved his soul, then he died immortal.
What? There's actually a way to become human? How did he do it?
Why? Do you want to become human again?
No, I'm just curious.
Then don't worry about it.
It's fun to live life with a little bite.
As a vampire, you'll see worlds you could have never imagined.
Now that we're alone, I have something to ask you. It's been a few years since you brought the boy to us. Have you changed your mind? Are you thinking of making Johnny your protege? Will we have a new tyro in the family soon? Everyone thinks you will. You could change him after we wake up from hibernation. He'd look older than you, but at least he wouldn't be stuck in a teen's body.
No, I want Johnny to be however he wants to be. I want a normal connection. I want him to grow up and someday grow old. He once told me that it was sad that I could never have grandkids. Maybe he's right. You know, if Johnny has some in the future, I hope that he'd let me think of them as family too. It'd give me hope.
And what if one of his descendants tells someone they're not supposed to?
How about this? I'll be extra choosy who I'll tell. I'll be their Uncle Mark until they're older. If Johnny thinks it's best not to tell his future kids, then I'll respect that too.
Fine, but in exchange, you'll hibernate. After we wake up, if you still think this is a good idea, I won't stop you. It's a beautiful dream, Mark. I hope that he'll have enough adopted grandchildren for you to have roots in the human world.
Are you going to get used to me gone?
No, of course not. Are you really going to go through with this? I mean, sleeping 20 years is a long time.
Yeah, 20 years may seem like a long time for a human, but it's supposed to feel short to a vampire. The whole idea is weird for me, too. I've never done anything like this before.
Will we keep in touch?
Of course you'll see me again. But by that time, you may not want to visit a vampire if you have a wife and kids.
You're my family. Of course I'd want you to meet them. You're not just a vampire. You're the only person who's ever cared about me. I want to see you again. It's not fair. I meet you and finally I have a normal life. And now you're leaving. I'll be alone again.
I wouldn't call living with a vampire normal. You know I have no choice. I need to hibernate. People will be suspicious of me if I stay the same age as you.
Couldn't you and I move somewhere, and when the society wakes up, we meet with them again?
If I was an older vampire, I could. But I'm a tyro. Mikkelsen said I must learn how to hibernate. He said my life someday could depend on it.
And me being around just screws everything up.
You promised me you'd be able to live by yourself. Don't be sad. If you'd rather live somewhere and with someone else, tell me. Don't force yourself. I don't want you feeling like you must be my house sitter or something. I can sell this place.
What? And leave here for a place with rules? No thanks. I'll be throwing parties here all the time.
What? No parties.
I'll be okay. I promise.
I'll miss you too, kid.
To new beginnings. To 2040.
To 2040.
Violet, are you certain you won't stay with me this time?
Quiet. I enjoy hibernation. It's so refreshing to wake up after 20 years. Everything will be new again.
I'm having cold feet. What if we never wake up? Who will check on us?
I will. I'll be out of town most of the time, but I will stop by. This may be the last time the Society of the Arts hibernate. Technology is always changing so fast. I'll stay awake to learn whatever I can of the world while you all sleep.
I can also drive by the house to make sure everything's all right.
Hibernation is important so no one recognizes us aging. It's something we must do.
Now that it's time, I can't believe it's happening. I wish I could have seen Johnny graduate.
You knew the risks when you took him as your ward.
I'll be okay. You'll see. When you come back, I'll be rolling in dough as a successful stockbroker. Maybe even have a brat or two.
As long as they're not bigger brats than you. Johnny, it's time for you to drive back.
Not until I know where you'll be sleeping.
Don't worry. Johnny is family. I think that it's right that he'll know where we'll be.
Against my better judgment, I'll show the boy where we'll sleep. I'll also give you a task. On January 2040, you are to call Belmonte's residence and make sure that he's awake first. We'll need many donors when we end hibernation. A lot of blood should be prepared beforehand. We'll be very thirsty.
You won't be needing my blood, will you?
Only if his donors say you must. Hopefully they'll stockpile enough by then. We don't need a whole lot, but blood expires after a month and a half. You never know. No need to dawdle. Let's show the boy where we'll sleep.
You aren't going to sleep in these, are you? They're coffins!
Don't be concerned. It's comfortable, inconspicuous, and non-obvious to thieves. The lid keeps the dust away and it opens from the inside. This one is mine. Are you ready to climb into yours, Mark?
Yes, I'll hibernate here. You're a strong kid. The strongest person I know, human or vampire. You'll do fine. I'm sure of it.
Are you ready, Mickelson's Tyro?
Yes, Mrs. Violet. We'll wake up in 20 years.
Damn it, the lid's stuck!
Professor! Professor! What's happening?
I'm so sorry! You're in this situation because of me! It's all my fault!
What are you talking about?
Someone nailed the coffin shut and set the house on fire! We're trapped!